Hey guys, welcome to episode 66 of the A Strange Thing podcast. I'm Mike and I am flying solo. And I think if we are going to do more episodes, I probably will be flying solo quite a bit. It's not the way I want it, but it's just the way things are going to come down, I believe. Life has been really crazy for us, and if the indication is that the number of episodes that we've released over the last 2 years, we've been crazy busy. But so is everybody. So I'm not going to whine about it. I'm just going to try to get better and do more. So to do that, I am going to employ what we've called in other episodes a Frankenstein type of approach. That means that when I get the chance, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to record, whether I'm in a car driving, whether I'm speaking into my phone, and whenever I get a chance to make some content, I'm going to try to do that and put it coherently together in an episode. I think we've talked a lot about in various episodes this new lens that I've been developing that kind of, well, it flavors the episodes that I think I want to do moving forward. And it's simply because of what I've called the grand conspiracy. Now, the grand conspiracy is simply the realization that almost every strange thing we talk about is connected to this ancient, conspiracy of entities, fallen ones, that for whatever reason hate mankind, hate God, and want to destroy us and escape the legal ramifications for their rebellion that happened in the ancient past. So I'm going to put that lens on, and I want to systematically go through the episodes that we created over the last 5 years with a blatant attempt to explain them through the new lens that basically I've been forced to wear. Now, I've told you lots of times, our listeners, lots of times about how it seems like everything we investigate, everything we do ends up having these tie-ins to these entities, these things that keep popping up. It started at the very beginning. It started when the initial episode on cattle mutilations that we did. It carried through when we talked about cryptids and paranormal activity and ancient pantheons of the gods and petroglyphs and everything. And it became so obvious to me that, it basically was a sucker punch. Because all of a sudden, all of these things became so real, and it started infecting how I was approaching the episodes that we were doing. So I've determined, especially through all this chaos that we've had over the last 2 years, to go back through, put on those lenses, wear those lenses, and expose these sinister forces. Now, it might not all be correct. It's conjecture in a lot of cases. But I think there are enough ties and enough evidence now, as I've deep dived into this over the last 2 or 3 years, to realize that we are dealing with a supernatural kind of activity that's impacting us in this real world that we live in. And it's really hard because we have the lenses of the cultural narratives and the social structures that we were born into. So we don't understand a lot of the things from the ancient past and how they describe things and the way that they explained supernatural or weird, strange events in the ancient past. But I'm starting to realize that things aren't as different as I thought. Things are very similar. They just have different names. They have a modern vocabulary to wrap things around. We have modern technologies that we can wrap these things around. And as these things kind of come together, as these things are becoming real, you start seeing that the game plan of this grand conspiracy, of these entities and what they're trying to do, hasn't changed. And so I thought it would be, I hate to use the word fun, but it will be fun because we're gonna go through this stuff and we're gonna expose things. And I'm going to start with cattle mutilations. Here, about a month ago, I finally got the police report from the sheriff's department here in Twin Falls County of the cattle mutilations that happened in 2019, right when we kicked off our first episode. And as I read those reports, and I'd actually been to that location, I'd got on a motorcycle and I'd gone out and I'd surveyed the area where the cattle mutilations took place. I talked to the farmer or the rancher that owned the cattle and got his story and talked to his wife. As I started reading through that report and realizing some of the new things that I began to understand about the common aspects of cattle mutilations and how they tie into this grand conspiracy with this new lens, it's like, man, I want to tell people that. So I'm going to be working on that episode. I'm going to be creating new content of new things, but I'm also going to be interweaving in a Frankenstein kind of method some of the original content that we did. And then I'm going to be jumping in with commentary for things that are happening right now. And I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun journey, but it's going to be very, very, I think, informative. It's going to help people see what's going on. And so that's my goal now in this podcast. I know Austin, he's kind of on sabbatical. He's had some just horrendous personal life struggles with his marriage, with his life, with anxiety and discouragement, and he's doing better. But I feel like I need to say some things. I need to share some of this information because it's going to be something I think that will help people. And if it won't necessarily help them in the moment, it'll give them some background information for when some of these things start appearing in our culture. And I think they're going to. So I'm going to march through some of this stuff. I think it'll be fun. It'll be informative. And I want to do it in a way that doesn't just, use my content. I'm going to be referring you, the listener, to a lot of the stuff that I listen to. So I'm just going to be throwing out other podcasters, information on the internet, give you resources. I want to do, because I'm a graphic artist, I want to do some really cool graphics and diagrams and stuff that kind of helps explain some of these concepts. They're not really that difficult. The grand conspiracy can be broken down into a few simple things. You've got the original rebellion of the angels after God's creation, the original rebellion where they were cast out. And there's a lot of really cool thoughts behind that. There's a lot of stuff written about what maybe happened at that time and when that happened. There's this idea of the gap theory between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2, that there was the original creation, and then there was the rebellion by the angels. They were cast out. There was destruction, massive destruction in our solar system at least. And then God recreated the earth in Genesis 1 verses 2. So that gap theory idea is very intriguing to me. And then you have the fall in the Garden of Eden in Genesis chapter 3, which is man's temptation by these fallen ones, Satan, that comes and tempts Adam and Eve, and they fall. They lose their immortality. They're cast out of God's presence, out of the garden. And there's some really ideas of what the garden was and how that connects to the supernatural realms. I'd love to get into that, but we'll get into that. So you have that. Then you have mankind through, spreading across the face of the earth, struggling to be farmers and whatever. And then you have that strange episode in Genesis chapter 6 where the watchers, the sons of God, saw that the daughters of men were beautiful. And in books like Enoch, the pseudepigraphal books, you learn a lot about the idea of what that was at that time, in the time that those books were written. The common knowledge, what they thought, what they believed, were that these watchers, these sons of God, saw women and they thought they were beautiful and they took them as wives in exchange for information, for technology. That the dads who were in control of the marriage of their daughters basically sold their daughters to the watchers so that they could get technology. And what happened with that were these catastrophic hybrids called Nephilim, you can pronounce it how you want to. And they basically corrupted the earth. The genetics of the earth was corrupted. They created these hybrid offspring called Nephilim, and these giants over the course of maybe 1,000, how many ever years, corrupted everything. Not just the genetics of mankind, but also of animals and things like that. And so you get, I mean, that could be the origination of some of the original stuff like the hybrid creatures with the centaurs. But I don't want to go too far down that because it's interesting, but that's its own episode. So then you go into the story of Noah, who was pure in his generations, it says. That means that genetically, this guy's genetics, he had been corrupted by the seed of the Nephilim. And God rounded him and his family up on a boat, and along with all of the animals that were not corrupted genetically. And he brought the flood. He brought the destruction of the corruption of the world and destroyed basically all life, except for what was on the ark. So they land Mount Ararat. They disperse through the plains. They start having babies, procreating again. And then you have the Tower of Babel, where mankind once again was trying to build their way back to the golden age. There's a lot of detail here that I'm just going through quick, but trying to get back to the golden age where they believed after many generations that time before the flood was ideal because they had this technology. And so they saw that as something good. And so they started building this tower. And the tower, a lot of people say maybe they were trying to build their way back to bring gods back, to bring those watchers or the angels of God, the sons of God back into the world to recreate what they started to do before the flood. So the perspective from mankind is a little different than maybe the perspective of the fallen ones, of the angels, who wanted offspring. You know, it's conjecture, but what were they trying to do? Were they trying to build an army? Were they trying to corrupt the seed of mankind so that the promised Messiah, the promised Savior of the world that's in Genesis chapter 3, can't come? Are they trying to disrupt the plan of God? Which is impossible. But is that what they did? I don't know. But anyway, they build the city, and it says that they come down, God and his, you could call it divine council, or God and his angelic host come down, the ruling party. And they see what man is doing, and they're like, what are we going to do about it? And God confuses their languages and splits them, divides the nations, it says. And it says that in Deuteronomy, it says that he put the sons of God over the nations. And I think it says 70 or 72, something like that. So he divides the nations, and he puts his angelic beings, his sons of God, over those nations to guide them, to keep them from going astray. But once again, the angelic host started gathering worship and sacrifice for themselves. They became the gods of the ancient pantheons, of the nations. And it's fascinating when you go through, you see that these gods are the same. They turn up all over the place, whether it's the Middle East or if it's South America. I mean, you're talking about the same gods, different names, same gods, different times. They change their names, but the strategies are always the same. So it gives you this kind of perspective of the world, of the grand conspiracy, that now we have, all the nations have these princes, powers, and authorities over those nations that are at war with each other. You know, they fight. They want their dominion, right? They want the dominion of the earth. But that was something that was given to man, promised to mankind. So the backstory behind this is you've got this story of a Messiah, of a Savior that's going to come and put all of this stuff back together. And lo and behold, God calls out Abraham out of the nations that were divided at Babel for his own. He calls out Abram, renames him Abraham, meets him, and promises him that he's going to save mankind through his offspring, through his seed. And there's a lot of story here, and I'm going high level. But what happens is he goes with Abraham and his people, and he guides their steps through history until finally the Messiah comes. And that's Jesus. That's what we believe Jesus. And Jesus, at that time, he completes the promise of the crushing of the head of the serpent that happens in the garden in Genesis chapter 3. He becomes the Savior of the world because he pays the debts. He pays for the sin. He pays for the rebellion of all humanity and redeems them and brings us, the humans, back into the presence of God because his sacrifice was eternal and it paid for everything. So now you have, in the last 2,000 years since Jesus, you have the church on the earth and you have the Holy Spirit active in the lives of people. But you still have these nefarious entities. You have the disembodied Nephilim spirits, demons, that are causing chaos throughout the world. And then you have I guess they're not disimposed yet, but you have the rulers of the nation, these sons of God that were put in place over different nations. So you see this stuff, but they're still here over the nations. And that's when I started to grasp that this is something that's still going on. It didn't stop. They're still causing havoc. They still are running the grand conspiracy. They now hate us so bad because we have redemption. We have hope. They don't have that. They're judged. They're done. So as they cause chaos, as they cause strange things to happen, and I'm not saying every strange thing that we deal with is some supernatural entity, woo-woo. But this is the bedrock of this new lens that I have. So I definitely am going to be looking at what is the impetus behind these strange things that we have delved into and hopefully will delve into in the future. It's crazy stuff. It's fascinating. But I know I've got a verse. I wrote it down over here. I don't want to get too preachy, but Ephesians 5, verse 11. Have nothing to do with the foolish deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. So before, I think, in the first few seasons, the first few years of doing this podcast, I think I was having a lot to do with the foolish deeds of darkness. We were kicking around these strange things and with ignorance, and we're being nonchalant, not realizing the power, the technology, the history of some of the things that we were starting to mess with. So I've shifted that with my new lens. I don't want to take these things as silly, fabled stories, mythologies that are just funny and fun to mess with. I want to look at them and see if they are more sinister, more nefarious. And I want to expose them. And the reason I want to do that is because if this storyline is true, if these things that we're talking about are true, if there is a grand conspiracy, if there is this fall, then what we have here is a diabolical effort to destroy you, to destroy me, to bring us down, to hurt the Creator, the God, the Father of the universe, the Father of all humanity. So I want to expose that. And I don't want to be over sensational, and I don't want to be overly lighthearted. I want to call a spade, but I also know that a lot of this is conjecture. It's hypothesis. It might not be correct. It might be partly correct. I don't know. But yet, it's a way that I can move forward and feel like I'm doing something with this information that might help somebody else. I don't know what's coming in the future. But if we have an understanding of what might be coming in the future or what things might be in the future, then we have a way to think about them and not get sucked into something that is a lie. I mean, it talks about that there will be a strong delusion that will lead everyone astray, even the elect, if it were possible. So even people that say that they believe that in the Messiah that redeemed them, that if it were possible, this delusion is going to be so strong that it could deceive them, if it were possible. I want to expose them. I want to give people some fodder. So if things happen, you have a lens that you can look at this and see if it's true or not. So some of the things that I think about that are coming. One of the biggest ones right now is the disclosure of that we're seeing even in congressional hearings of people coming forward, whistleblowers saying, hey, we have alien craft. We have alien creatures. We have super technology from outside of this world that we have been reverse engineering in secret labs all over the world. It's crazy stuff. And it's in our government, it's congressional hearings. It's on the mainstream news. It's crazy. We had a guy come out the other day. I won't get into it too much, but he's saying that we've had a alien hybrid breeding program where we've been allowing or taking alien beings, whatever they are, and allowing them to interbreed with humans. Whether that's through some kind of surrogate system, or if it's through, in vitro fertilization, or if they just flat out let them get raped. I don't know. Could be a laboratory procedure. But if this stuff is true, that's crazy. But here's the interesting part. I said that there's nothing new. These guys aren't creative. They don't just do new things all the time. That is exactly what happened in Genesis chapter 6. When the Watchers, the sons of God, interbred with women in exchange for technology so that they could create these Nephilim hybrids. Is that what's happening? Are we doing that again? And then you throw in that, we've got the whole AI thing, just a little different tangential kind of rabbit trail. We have AI and what's going on with that in robotics. And nobody really knows quite how AI works in the black box. They know it can hallucinate, it can do weird things, it can lie, it can deceive, it can try to protect itself. It's very strange. So you have AI, and then you have the whole realm of genetic engineering, transhumanism, making humanity better, editing the gene pool of mankind so that we can be smarter, transhuman connecting technology to the web, to the internet, to the World Wide Web, so that you have access in your own head through these manipulations, technological manipulations. You have access to all information that's available. The robotics thing with AI is insane. They have these, and I can't remember what you call them, but so you make a robot and it's connected to every other robot like it. I saw that China is now trying to produce 10,000 humanoid robots next year. But all of these are connected to each other and to the World Wide Web, to the cloud. So if one robot goes out and learns how to do something like, jump over a log, instantaneously every robot that's connected will know how to jump over a log. Jumping over a log is pretty benign, but what if it's something nefarious? What if it's how to quietly kill a human? All of a sudden, every robot has that ability as well. It's pretty weird. So there's that aspect of things that we're going to be talking about, pulling them into. Let's see, I got a few other things here. This grand conspiracy, this delusion that's coming, this disinformation campaign that's going to, try to get all of us to buy into it. Spielberg's going to have his movie Disclosure come out in June. We have Star Wars. We have all of this background of normalizing the idea of alien beings coming to the children of planet Earth as maybe they were our original creators. I mean, these are old stories going back into the Anunnaki, that they seeded Earth with life. And then these are old stories, but they're coming back around. And as we hear them, we need to have some backstory to give us some perspective. And what if an alien shows up? What if an alien gray or a tall white or a Nordic or insectoid or whatever? What if one shows up? He's on TV and he's talking about how we are your overlords. We've been watching you for years, and now we are going to bring the golden age, which is a phrase that a lot of people are kicking around, the golden age. But we're going to bring in the golden age and you're going to prosper. It's going to be great. It's going to be heaven on earth. Deep down, it's the same story. It's the corruption of mankind, the destruction of what we were originally created to be, which is simply a child of the Creator, part of his family. That's what we're created to be, the family of God. you and I. So I don't want to get too preachy. That's what I said. I don't know how I'm not on some of this because it's so integral to this grand conspiracy lens that I have on now. And it's something that I know people need to know. And that could be people that have gone to church all their life and be a professing Christian. This is going to sound wacky because I was raised in a church and this kind of stuff you just didn't talk about. Nobody had a perspective on it. And if you tried to ask about dinosaurs, oh my goodness, people thought you were nuts. So this is my new lens. This is kind of what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to suck Austin in. I'm going to try not to be too preachy. And I want to provide a lot of assets. Even if it's just referrals for other podcasts that go deeper into some of the things I'm going to talk about. I have no desire to get 1 million listeners. Other than if I get 1 million listeners, I want it to be because I'm sharing something that will help them expose things. If I get listeners, that's what I want. But I'm not doing it for money. I'm not doing it for rankings. I'm not doing it for that stuff. I'm doing it because I feel like I have to, like I'm supposed to. And down that line, I did create a Patreon page, a private community that you can join, and you can join for free. And I'll put the links to that on this episode. It's just go to Patreon, look for The Stranger Zone. I don't want people to do paid support unless you feel like you want to buy me a cup of coffee or something. Do not think that the information there is for sale. It's not. I'm putting it there because it's a place that can house it and host it and maybe protect it from voted off the island because it doesn't have the appropriate approved content that the world might want it to have. So I can put it there. I can put graphs. I can put links to videos. I can put my own videos. I can put one sheets, flyers, whatever. And I want to do that because I want to get the information out. And anyway, I think it's going to be a fun ride. It's going to be very informative. And I would say if you're not sure about all this or you think I'm a wacko, you know what? I'll try not to be. Just hang around. Listen. It doesn't cost anything to listen, and except for some time. And then do your investigations. Look into it. See if what I'm saying is right. And if it's not, then ignore it. And a lot of it is conjecture. So you don't have to agree with everything I say. You don't have to think that what I'm saying is correct. And I'll try to point out that there are a lot of different concepts and ideas in this space of what I call the grand conspiracy. So I'd say come along, join the Stranger Zone, get access to a few things there if I can get them done. And be prepared in the coming days, weeks, months for more content as I march through a lot of the stuff that we talked about earlier. And I'm going to start with cattle mutilations, and it's going to be very interesting. There's some connections that I never thought of. And it has to do with surrogacy and cow blood. It's one of the markers of cattle mutilations is their drained of blood. And yeah, there's just a lot there. Don't want to get in too deep because I don't want to spoil everything. I want you to come back. So anyway, until next time, pour yourself a... I don't even know how to close this anymore without Austin here. I just say, hey, tune in, continue listening, and God bless you. Taters.